The next talk is about Steph Shample. She's from the US, and she's working at S2 Advising LLC at the University of Maryland. And today she's going to discuss about Infostealers and ransomware feeding the cybercrime economy. Steph, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you very much to this hackathon. I do apologize that I can't be there in person. I had a family emergency, but I want to sincerely thank the organizers for working with me and allowing me to do this, and appreciate your audience as well for working with me. So let's get into the 2026 version of Infostealers versus ransomware. First, yes, I am a researcher in the United States. My background is military intelligence, and then I was in the intelligence community. I was part of the OPM breach. China, Russia, Iran had all of my information, so I might as well just be open about my background with all of you too. So I have done GSM analysis, and then I moved into analyzing Iran's cyber program post Stuxnet because I was a translator as well. So my expertise is cybercrime. I spend the majority of my days on the dark web. I hang out in gross forums looking at gross things, but I bring the research tidbits to really important crowds, and then I teach that as well at my University of Maryland. So that is my background, and I'm adding France as another country to present, and I'm thrilled. I started adding my sources up front, and I just have this here. I hope that all of you will find this funny. When I first started doing public speaking, I had someone question the fact that Russia and Iran were working together. And I think we can all have a very hearty laugh at that right now. But I thought, why not just put sources right up front, and then I will tell you too. My theme for this year is video game theme, because personally when I'm on the dark web, and you'll see the screenshots coming shortly, it looks like a video game to me. The colors, the themes, the avatars, how the actors interact. So all of these images are AI generated, minus the dark web. These are all of my sources, and I'm very happy to share anything with any of you researchers afterwards. I have blurred Telegram channels, users, handles, marketplaces, Tor links, just for safety. We don't want to encourage the cybercrime too much, but I'm very, very happy to share those on an individual and independent basis if you just reach out to me afterwards. So, what are we going to discuss today? The cybercrime stats, the economy, and how Infostealers are feeding ransomware, and ransomware is, of course, feeding the cybercrime economy. We are all on the lookout for ransomware constantly. What is the 2025 and 2026 status of both ransomware and Infostealers, and their presence on the dark web, as well as dark web adjacent platforms such as Telegram, Talk, Discord, all of these places where credentials or code or anything is sold that again facilitates Infostealer and ransomware attacks. So to begin, why now? Infostealers are not a new technology, right? The one that we're going to see very shortly has been around for about 20 years, 2 decades. But right now, they are jumping up in popularity, and the image that I have on the right here is from 2024 in this market, which I did anonymize. If you spend time on the dark web, I'm sure you know which one this is. But 2024 was the first time that I saw stealer logs have their very own entry. So you can see here that the actors are offering source code for sale. If you want a docs, do you want a combo list? Would you like cracked accounts? And stealer logs appeared on this list at the end of 2024 for the first time in their own right. Plenty of availability, credentials are everywhere. The attack surface has exploded because we all have accounts, we all have platforms, we are all digitally connected, we have social media, and now introduce AI, which also adds to the attack surface, right? And the cybercrime statistics, right, if you want to put a financial wrapper around those, so in 2025, the prediction was that the cybercrime global damages were going to hit approximately 10.5 trillion. That is basically making that the third country. So the size of the financial amount would be after China and the United States as far as the damages. And that's a huge number. That is a really, really large number. Just take a second to sit with that. And then also the telecom and the CTI industries are saying that in 1 year only, right, about 2 billion credentials were stolen. Now, given the amount of credentials that are out there, maybe that's not a large number, but if you break that out, and what I like to do is I match what I see bumping and speaking and interacting with cyber actors, ransomware gangs, I match that to enterprise and reporting and the telecom industries and the CTI industries. That basically breaks out to half of the human population on the globe has been impacted by theft of a credential. So we are a large population, right? Half of us on this planet have been impacted by credentials. And as we continue, more accounts, more digital presence, more online interactions, that's only going to grow and continue to expand. I have the screenshot here, right? What is an infostealer? Right at the top. Malware designed to steal information from devices. This screenshot that I have right here, where you can check that box that says don't expire your authorization cookie, humans really are the weakest link. We really are part of the problem. I laughed and I took this from an open source tool. I was at a workshop, and I know when we have scripts running, when we have things running in the background, we want to keep our sessions intact. We want to stay logged in. We don't want that millisecond of re-entering our password or authorizing our login, right? But this really is part of the problem. And so I added a screenshot in here to just show that even on our open source tools, even we as practitioners are facing this. Don't check that box. If you do anything, you come away with anything from the end of that presentation, please don't check the box to not have your authorization cookie expire. Just don't do it. So infostealers are designed, of course, to inject themselves into legitimate processes and then steal the information from said processes. What do they go after? What are they targeting? The stored credentials, your username, your passwords, authentication tokens. This is critical for session hijacking. Browser cookies. This is how infostealers are bypassing MFA when it's enforced. Any system information, cryptocurrency wallets. The list of what infostealers target truly does go on and on. So let's go into some families that are popular. Kind of like ransomware groups and like dark web markets. The names of the infostealers are not what you should focus on, but do focus on their TTPs, right? Their tactics, their techniques and procedures. What do they go after? So I mentioned earlier that we're coming up on Zeus. Zeus is about 20 years old now. We merged in 2006. So not a new technology, as I mentioned, but much more in use and much more risky combined in the landscape and the threat landscape. Raccoon 2.0 emerged in 2019, and that is what you probably saw the headlines compromised ChatGPT accounts. We saw the Redline stealer emerge during the pandemic in 2020, went after VPN accounts, and as everybody moved online, Redline really had a great deal of success stealing those credentials and when everybody moved virtually. Again, that Telegram channel is the word. I'm happy to share that with you outside of this offline. We have Loma or Loma C2, as you may have heard, and I highlighted this one because I wanted to show that not only are cyber criminals, of course, using infostealers, but so are APT groups. So are groups in Iran, Russians are using them, and then you have your big name groups such as Scattered Spider or Sticky Werewolf. And Luma examples, they will target or pull down Unix IDs, IP addresses, etc. So this presentation, I first started working on this research and I debuted this in Vienna at the end of last year, at the end of 2025. And I had to update this again for last month when I presented in Wisconsin. So here is the 2026. That quickly, right, we have a lot more infostealer families emerging and coming through. So Luma C2 is still the top as of this year for credential, cookie, VPN, and wallet theft. It has since been taken down. There was a bust on it, law enforcement worked on it, but there is a replacement that has already come back up. Very, very common, we're all familiar with that. Vidar goes after cloud credentials and is used as a loader. Rhadamanthus has emerged and is really, really good at evading detection, and Rhadamanthus fits into the malware as a service use. And then we have Steel C, and Steel C is really going heavily attacking against single sign-on, as well as browser and plugin attacks. So just a portrait, a very high-level overview of what kinds of infostealers are out there actively working. And we can see that as we, emerge, they're going after the cloud, they're going after single sign-on, and so it's something to be mindful of. And then another one that was coming out, and I changed that from emerging, and is absolutely here, it is active, is Accreed. This Accreed infostealer is actually what filled the Luma gap after it was taken down. So as you know, I'm on the dark web quite frequently, and Russian markets would usually advertise in small sections. We have dozens of credentials available, we have infostealer material available, and that is now offering hundreds of thousands of logs on these markets daily, right? And I'm sure that you've seen, there's a lot of people laughing at it, but it really is true now. With infostealers, malicious actors are logging in. They don't have to hack in anymore. They don't have to probe. They don't have to find erroneous ports or protocols that shouldn't be open or exposed to the internet. They truly can just use Infostealers, purchase the credentials from somewhere, and then log in. So once they're installed, which of course they embed themselves on device, right? These tools are quiet. They're collecting stealthily, and then they send to a C2, which is of course actor controlled, malicious actor controlled. Infostealers are very good at circumventing the traditional protections that are in place. Includes multiple authentication, includes antivirus. So over half of the devices that are infected, Infostealer research is indicating right now they have the virus, they have protection and PDR, but actors are defeat it. Now, one caveat, we have to be mindful of these things, right? But I'm taking dark web. It is personal information, and yes, we have the enterprise information to match that, but just, these aren't exactly a picture of exactly what is happening, what is going on. So over half of the devices infected with Infostealer malware had some sort of protection. It didn't matter at this. I do think that's critical. Infostealers are going to enter systems much like everything else does, right? This is not an innovative way that they come in. A phishing email redirected to a typo-squatted website, a fake software download, malicious advertising, right? So this is not new information how they spread or how they are entering a platform, but it bears repeating just so everybody knows that the same way ransomware comes in applies to Infostealers as well. So I have here from the Darknet Army, this is a market on the dark web, of course. You can see up top, they've got everything. They have a Telegram group. You can advertise with them, right? So I wanted to show how they were offering redline stealer logs, and this is from February 2025, so just a little over a year old. They're all kinds of a verified seller, all kinds of advertising. The more Infostealer credentials that you sell or provide, the more reviews you can have. And it's just like any other ecosystem. Good reviews, continue customers, grow your market, grow your procurement, right? And I did want to message this here. I love this here to remind myself. So not all, there we go. Not all Infostealers collect the sufficient data to determine whether there was for sure antivirus or endpoint detection. That data is coming from reported incidents, reported breaches. So again, that caveat of how we're matching enterprise to what we're seeing on the dark web or in actor-controlled forums as well, but it does bear repeating. So what do Infostealers give attackers? Of course, they're going to give the safe passwords, they expose them. They're going to give credentials and logons to emails, VPN accounts, and software as a service, right? We talked about that single sign-on and how they get in. They're going to bypass MFA, which is happening continuously, and they can hijack a live session, of course, because of what we showed before. So these are some live IOCs, very recent, from all of the Infostealer families that I shared with you in earlier slides. We've got PDFs, executables, DLLs, right? We've got Discord session tokens being shared. So these are just some of the live IOCs that are in the wild right now, how they are what Infostealers are revealing and what are they giving to attackers to use throughout their operations. I have another screenshot here, right? It's truly amazing to see the types of choices. It is honestly like a shopping spree when you go online. So here is from December 2024. This is stolen data, right? This was the Redline and offering Luma as well. You can see that they have, all right, we've got the website, we've got a login, we've got a password. They've got their prices listed. They have their Proton Mail and Jabber where you can contact them. They've also got their private Telegram, right? They've got their session ID. So this is really, really organized. You can go onto any of these websites, any of these markets and say, I want Infostealers touching the government, healthcare, maritime, auto industry. It's truly customizing and choosing what you want and what industry you want to go after. So once they decide what they want to do and how they want to, conduct their crime, if you will, the attackers will escalate privileges, they can move laterally across systems, of course deploy that ransomware as the next stage, and then exfiltrate sensitive data. So this is how the Infostealers and the credentials lead into the ransomware. This is how one click or one login using a stolen credential then leads to a ransomware incident. So we have the Infostealer, it's on the dark web, we sell the access, right, whether that's going direct to a ransomware gang, but we also have initial access brokers who will say, okay, I've got a terabyte of credentials for the auto industry, or I've got really solid government entry points. How much will you pay for that? So that's where the initial access broker comes in versus working directly with a ransomware group or a cyber criminal. So however they want to get the access, procure the credentials, and then they go on to infect that environment and demand that ransomware payment. So what is the state of ransomware looking like in 2026? And you'll forgive me for moving quickly, but because they're so tied, I want to give you that full preview. So some of these ransomware groups, for instance, Clock, Sodno, they are no longer active. But much like you don't want to pay attention to the names of an Infostealer or the name of a ransomware group, you want to pay attention to the tactics. We know that when Clock broke down, there were a lot of people that broke out and then went to another ransomware group or started their own. So you've got to watch what patterns are repeating. The extortion patterns for ransomware continue very well into this year. So double extortion, your organization is hit, your data is encrypted, you are then threatened with reputational damage, whether that is leaking the attack to the public, leaking it to stakeholders, leaking it to your board, that's double extortion. And we see that continuing, even though some of these ransomware groups are no longer active in 2026. Triple extortion. The same process as a double extortion, but what they might add here, that extra layer to make it that trifecta, is perhaps they throw a DDoS attack in addition to the ransomware threat. So you've got DDoS denying services on one end, everybody's looking over here trying to restore service, but in the background, the ransomware attack is happening and they're exfilling that data. I have included a screenshot here of a triple extortion software offered for sale on a Russian market. This was on XSS. It's probably a rat or a tool that facilitates DDoS, but just to show you that there is an active market to go to any layer of what you want to do within your operation. So hey, you want to do ransomware? Great. What extortion method would you like? They have tools for sale for double, triple, and now we move to quadruple. So quadruple extortion is of course everything we've previously discussed, but now they take it one level further with the reputational damage. And this is a new tactic that we observed in the early part of 2025. Alpha V or Black Cat actually filed a U.S. securities complaint against one of their victims. The victim refused to pay, they accessed their backups, they continued operations. So Alpha V and Black Cat actually turned them into law enforcement in addition to damaging their reputation with their customers, with their stakeholders, taking over their systems. So that is really a new level of extortion, and I wanted to highlight that because that is continuing to happen in ransomware negotiations. We see this threat a lot. It's one thing to try to access your backups and get yourself back up and running and keep the damage and the noise as minimal as possible, but when you have criminal actors threatening to expose you to a higher level of government or file a complaint, we really have reached a new level, and so I thought that was interesting to discuss and show that that is actively happening here. So this is just a recap to explain what's double versus triple versus quadruple extortion. All of these extortion processes are still happening in 2026. Ransomware economics for 2026, we've got some interesting observing the blockchain, right, where payments are, as well as industry reports, as well as the cyber actors. I took a trifold approach to this. So the average payout for this year, we are halfway through it, of course, just about, is about $900,000 to $1 million. This is down from $2 million, which was the average throughout 2024 and 2025. Only 25% of victims are paying. This is also down. It was usually a third worldwide that victims were paying, and we are seeing that reduced. When you pay, it is not guaranteed that you're going to get your data back, and we are seeing repeat attacks still happen. This is most common in the education, the .edu, as well as healthcare. So they pay or they handle the incident the first time, but they don't patch or they don't fix the vulnerability or the exploit, and they are hit again. There has been one university in the United States that has been hit 3 times within a 3-month period. I'm not joking. People are not fixing it. It's really interesting. So the true damage isn't just the encryption or losing the data, though that is painful. But the reputation, the reputation loss, the trust loss is really, really difficult for organizations to come back from, and that's why we need to have this discussion and try to prevent ransomware prevent Infostealers as much as possible, especially given the stats for 2026. So again, this is just a small piece of the pie. If you pay it, doesn't mean your data is not going to appear on the dark web, doesn't mean you're safe from future attacks. It doesn't mean that your stakeholders and clients are going to trust you. It really is the reputation. That is where the rest of the work comes in to recover fully and truly from a ransomware incident. So to cover some statistics, as I mentioned before, there's multi-extortion tactics. They are dominating 24 to 25, continues into this first half of 26. And then over half of ransomware victims is actually 54% have witnessed their domain show up in a dealer log entry. Once they are aware that they are a victim and investigations continue, forensics come to light, 54% of victims appear in the dealer log entry. Europe has accounted for about 22% of ransomware victims by their location. This is as of last year, so we need to see what 2026 looks like. And then European organizations are accounting for 1/4 of the reported ransomware incidents. So Europe is, of course, a very, very close second, only to North America. Canada, Mexico, and the United States are targeted first and foremost, followed by European organizations. These stats come from mainly telecom, as well as the tech world. Those are where the stats are coming from. I wanted to investigate that, but I have to caveat that not all ransomware attacks are reported. Some go underreported, just to note that for statistical purposes. So, of course, we can now talk about one of the biggest events that happened last year. This was the attack on Land Rover and Jaguar. Really huge event in the UK, took them offline. How did this happen? An Infostealer malware got Jira credentials, so they were able to log into Jaguar Land Rover's Jira server. And there were actually 2 attacks in this ransomware incident as well. So this is a real world, recent incident, huge financial costs, very damaging to reputations, and they didn't go after Jaguar and Land Rover themselves. They went after their attached, connected infrastructure with an Infostealer, logged into Jira, and repeatedly attacked them. I'm sure most of you, or a lot of you, lived through that, but it's really fascinating to kind of see what's going on in the dark web, what is the reporting from industry happening in an actual real-world incident recently. So the market, let's take a look at some more of these because it really is truly fascinating. So we have another dark web market here. You can see that this review, the quality is rated very poor, right? So you have to really prove yourself as a cyber actor, as a malicious actor. You can see down here we have somebody who's asking for, I don't want public shit, that's a quote, right? It doesn't have to be 100% private or brand new credentials, but they want 60% or more. Again, when people can go online and just pick and choose what to buy, what industry to go after, in a polarized world such as ours, we've really got to pay attention to this because government will be hit, maritime will be hit, any industry at any point will become a target. And we've got to talk about the protections in place and then what the cyber actors are advertising online. It is very organized, it is very sophisticated, and these markets are showing that. So we can see here, of course, data exfiltration, initial access broker offers. We've got the contact me please, Telegram, talks, or session for all of those. And then you can see in the right screenshot what they're offering. So we've got database user credentials, we've got client infrastructure, ticket and log control. So what you can pick and choose to get into or ask for or request. There really is no limit to how or where you can enter an environment and then wreak havoc in that environment once you're in. XSS on the left here, continued advertisement. XSS is a huge, huge market for Infostealers. And on the right, I've got here just to show you again, so now we go into payment systems. So the red line stealer, this is a Telegram channel that is offering Visa, Samsung, one-time payments, again, Amazon, PayPal, Venmo, you can customize and pick absolutely anything. So they're running it like a business, as I mentioned. We saw this with Conti as they dispersed and had their implosion, and then their affiliates and everybody else exited and left. They are truly now running it like a business. So they are conducting interviews for the right affiliates or for the right initial access broker who actually has access. Can you get an internal employee, right? They're having funding. There are feature developments for ransomware as well as Infostealers. This is where that ransomware as a service and malware as a service, we are seeing that all the time. Hey, I need somebody who's a professional in an Apple environment versus an Android environment. I need somebody who can go after a mobile environment versus desktop, laptop. You can customize and truly request anything. They're very, very organized. This is 8-based ransomware, which you can see on their website, has not only a terms of service, but they have an FAQ to help people procure cryptocurrency, to pay, to negotiate, to keep their attack quiet. They really have a well-organized, publicized way to interact with them and handle the incident. The same is true for Lockbit, right? Another very active one. We have them showing you how you can use PayPal, a credit card, or a bank account to procure the cryptocurrency that you need to pay them for having stolen your data. So really just fascinating to continue to look at this. As a researcher and as a professor, I really like to share sources. So these are 2 of the ransomware sites that I like to use, or I'll tell my students, or I'll tell my colleagues to use, and match to their online activities, IOCs that are broken out. If you have a missed instance, if you belong to an ISAC, these are 2 really solid websites that you can use to track ransomware groups, who's working with initial access brokers, who is using Infostealers in their operations versus who isn't, so you can kind of understand the trends and what's changing and what's going through. So I mentioned that ransomware as a service and malware as a service models, they are truly key structural drivers behind all of this. The volume is continuously increasing, as is the operational sophistication. We know what credentials are being stolen. We know how they're being used. We covered that. IBM itself reported a 266% increase in 2025. This was Infostealer related activity. So not only ransomware groups using Infostealers, but how else they are circulating amongst the criminal ecosystem. And they are also seeing that continued investment in Infostealer innovation, noted by IBM. Very, very interesting. So what do? We have to give as practitioners, right? We've got to give suggestions for mitigation and remediation so that people can promptly ignore them. No, I'm just kidding, but truly the repeat attacks give me cause for concern. So continuous monitoring, I think we all know that. Access control. You've got to have MFA enforced. It can't just be enabled. You can't just let your employee or population or student group or doctor group or whoever that is say, yeah, sure, I'll definitely set up my MFA. You've got to enforce it. There's no way around it. To reduce it. It's not going to prevent it, but to reduce it. Humans, we are the weakest link, so we need to invest in and constantly have user training and awareness. I know we all kind of sit there, slog through, click the button, but we've got to help the people who aren't in our field, who aren't at our level. We've got to help HR and finance and the C-suite and the boards of our organizations, because those departments are targeted because actors know that that's an easier way in. So we've really got to invest in that user training. Zero Trust will definitely help with session and device validation. Zero Trust will also help enforce micro-segmentation, which is crucial for ransomware prevention. Ransomware lives in that kind of east-west movement. So if we implement Zero Trust, which is the current suggestion for 2026, and organizations are moving towards that, we should see some reduction. And then, of course, data loss prevention. You want to make sure that you have prevention of exfil for data to the smallest level, right? You don't want to take any chances. And then clearing cookies and what have you as well will also help. We saw the sessions. You've got to kick people out. You've got to kick your employees out, force them to revalidate, relog in, clear your cookies, clear your sessions, start a new user session. So this is just the ending recap, right? Ransomware versus Infostealers. Ransomware, loud, demanding money. You know when it happens. You get the note of death. You get, here's how you're going to pay us. You get the threats. Infostealers work very, very quietly in the background. They're harvesting, they're taking, they're silent. You're generally not aware of it. Infostealers have a longer cycle. They are sold and resold again. Ransomware is generally, it can be fast, but it can also take a little bit of time. It really depends on the group and the level of sophistication and their end goal. And then additionally, right, you've got a lot of higher negotiation and infrastructure and movement needed for ransomware, whereas Infostealers, a little bit more basic skill. You can automate Infostealers, you can work with that initial access broker, you can put in a request, right? So that differentiation as far as how the human carries out the attack is definitely there. Victims, definitely in both of them, right? While it's a high victim awareness for ransomware and it's a crisis, the Infostealers now feeding that ransomware, you don't want to catch one of those or be caught up in one of those either. So that's where the appropriate cybersecurity hygiene comes in, that we also need to really distill down not only to our community, but to every enterprise and organization. So I want to say thank you very much again. I know I moved quickly, but I wanted to cover all of them. I am very happy to take questions offline, time permitting. I will turn it back over, and I just thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of the conference and the south of France. Truly appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay. Can you hear me, Steph? Can you hear me? Okay, so you can have question. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hi. Thank you for the conference. Oh, sorry. It was very interesting. I was wondering, for threat intel operations, how do you deal with sometimes you're stuck behind a paywall for a forum, for Infostealer logs. It's due to the fact that jurisdictions tells us that it's illegal. Do you have any tips regarding that?
I would, so first, if you're using a VPN, I would maybe try to change your endpoint. I have seen that defeat paywalls, I've seen that help. I have seen people, different browsers, different configurations, use that. That would be my biggest suggestion for right now. There are otherwise scripts publicly available on GitHub that actually offer a defeat for this. If you wanted to contact me after, I would be very happy to send you some of those GitHub entries if the VPN option didn't work for you. Does that answer your question? Am I on the right track there?
Yes, partly. And I was wondering if there was any some way to justify the fact, because it's illegal in our region to do that.
Right. And I don't know about that justification here. Maybe we should take that offline. It might be better. So I would love if you would email me or contact me and we can have a further legal discussion there.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Simon. Thank you very much for the talk. I was actually wondering, because you spoke mostly about Russian-speaking forums. Since you are an expert on Iranian threats, did you see or did you witness any increase or any specific attacks about stealers on ransomwares by Iranian groups?
I absolutely do. I thank you for that question, because I think right now in this very geopolitically intense world, it's important to mention that. As we know, Russia is one of the most active entities on the dark web, but China, Iran, and a lot of other countries are also active on there. I will say that the Russian markets and infrastructure are the most common and popular for selling. They facilitate it. But Iran is a purchaser. Iran uses, Iran adapts and emulates what Russia is doing in this realm, absolutely. So you will absolutely see Iranian actors interacting with, co-selling, offering organizations that maybe Russia might have a difficult time getting into. I'm thinking of places, say, like Armenia or Azerbaijan, right? Iran kind of has a really good entry point into that where Russia may not. So Iranian cyber criminals are using, purchasing, and conducting Infostealer attacks. Iranian APTs, same thing. Those moonlighters who are maybe government by day and then dabble at night, conduct their own operations. Yes, Iran is very much actively using and procuring credentials from Infostealers, and their ransomware operations are very, very active and continuing as well, APTs as well as cyber criminals. Yes.
Okay, last one.
Yeah, I have a very controversial question. I'm playing devil's advocate just for the sake of the discussion. So we have miserably failed to educate the companies to, uplift their security posture. There are rules, there are laws, and yes, companies could be sued and pay a fine if they're not compliant, but then what it does, it's basically feed a bunch of lawyers, and it takes forever for anything to happen. So shouldn't we actually thank the ransomware? Because at the end of the day, they are the one enforcing those rules by basically forcing people to pay a fine if they are not doing a good job when it comes to security. So isn't that a more effective way to improve security, and should we just let them do their stuff?
Sir, you're right. You're not wrong. I don't think that's controversial at all. I applaud your divergent thinking. What we have learned from the dark web and how we have seen the dark web come together and now offer solutions for what we as practitioners can't fix because people don't listen to us. You said it. We've trained them. We've put the information out there. People don't listen to us. And so then it does oftentimes end up in a legal ballroom, whether that's a settlement, a mediation, trying to keep it low level. What we have learned and taken from the dark web and ransomware actors, you are right, particularly when they file SEC complaints, and ransomware actors have also gone after and worked around GDPR as well, right? They have also known, well, here's how you can get around this, or here's a really good entity to get into, and here's where you will gain notoriety because you can, talk about how the GDPR didn't work as well. We are learning a ton from cyber criminals. The dark web is a wealth of information. And so, yeah, that's why I have my anonymous personas just hang out on there and pretend like I'm not a researcher, but then I come here and we have these conversations. So I'm straddling the best of both worlds. Let me know if you want to join me. Great call.
Okay, thanks a lot, Steph. We have to stop now. Yeah. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.
And bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
See you next time. Bye-bye.